Destiny is a game that I've had a very mixed relationship with. On the one hand, it's been one of the most fun gaming experiences I've had in years. On the other, it's been one of the most frustrating. The balance between these has shifted plenty since I started, stopped, and restarted playing again. But with the latest update out for a little time now, I thought it'd be a good moment to give something of a personal retrospective. For the record, I am, and likely always will be, a huge fan of Bungie's works. Their art directions inspired my own artistic endeavours, their games have always been a joy to play, and their community-driven ethic is downright refreshing in this day and age, especially when game devs like to play pretend instead of actually caring for their fan bases. So when I learned that Bungie were moving away from Halo, a series that has a very special place in my heart, I was excited to see what they'd be making next. Boy, let me tell you, Destiny immediately appealed to me. I'd had my fill of PvP as a whole, and co-op-based gameplay was something I relish in. So when I saw the concepts, the art direction they were taking, and everything else to do with this project, I fell in love instantly. Wild West-esque fantasy in space, with awesome-looking robot characters and fantastic armor design, not to mention beautiful surroundings and intriguing enemies to fight. Yes, very yes, right up my alley. That looked like some good stuff for me. So I got my hands on the game for Xbox 360 about 2 weeks after the launch, and I adored it. For the first month of playing, I was absolutely hooked. I barely put the game down. I was on level 20 in no time, and my Exo Warlock peaked at level 28. But by the time I was level 24, the issues had become more than noticeable. The small amount of story, whilst very fun and very imaginative, had simply presented more questions than answers, and wasn't very substantial. There was only one raid, the Vault of Glass, and a small number of strikes, which meant that there wasn't much a player could do outside of grinding Crucible once they reached endgame. And Crucible itself only had 3 modes at the time. Of course, there were the daily bounties and activities, plus the weekly nightfall, but in the end it all started to feel a bit dry. Like the game wasn't quite finished, it was rushed out due to Activision's deadlines or something along that. For the first time ever playing a Bungie game, I felt a pang of disappointment. Then, news of the update released, with a $20 price tag, and removing the ability to level up for those who didn't purchase it. Now don't get me wrong, new content was exciting, but at the time I couldn't justify the price, or the lockout for leveling up for those who didn't buy it, and so I dropped the game, and told myself, I will not play this game again until there are substantial changes and there is more plot involved. Flash forward to the end of 2015, The Taken King had been out for a little while, and I had enough spare money to buy a PlayStation 4 and 2 copies of The Taken King. One for me, and one for someone to play with. Before I would play with my choice of Fireteam partner, however, my copy and console arrived. So I decided to give it a try, and told myself firmly, I'm not gonna go beyond level 10 until they have the game. It's fine, I'll be able to stop. That didn't quite work out. But eventually we were at even levels, and we progressed on through having a complete blast. The new content was hugely refreshing for me to experience, and the seemingly complete rewrite of much of the plot and mission progression made it feel like an entirely different game from that old version of Destiny that I played a year before. Eventually, however, new problems arose. The level cap was now 40, with 320 being the light cap at the time. So despite our best efforts, due to the fact that we were a fireteam of 2, and the fact that we lacked microphones, our leveling progression peaked at 300. The Prison of Elders became our grinding ground, but the challenge seemed built for fireteams of 3, making it difficult for us to clear much of it. As for the raids, the Dark Below's raid to kill Crota was fun, and the Vault of Glass was always a blast, but King's Fall remained elusively unclearable to us due to the microphone issue. Trying to find anyone on the LFG to play with you without microphones is near impossible, it seems. So once again I felt as if we peaked at this insurmountable point. Perhaps it was simply the limit of our skill at the game, but we had made no budging point after playing for months. Additionally, with my fireteam partner coming from a different sort of grind, their frustration at the loot system being heavily RNG based meant that they'd spent 2 months working towards the last word with absolutely zero progress made. In the end, they got it through an engram drop from Xur, and they were happy about it, but the point was still valid. Then the next update news came, with good and bad implications. The best implication of all, the update was free. An actual miracle considering Activision's usual stance on these things. But for me personally, the bad news was the Sunsinger nerfs. As somebody who primarily plays Sunsinger, specifically a certain melee-based revive build Sunsinger, the nerfs listed not only seemed overwhelmingly one-sided towards that class, which I do admit is somewhat OP, but would completely decimate, if true, my entire playstyle. Once again, I felt that twinge of disappointment, but I really hope that the new update would bring some good news. And that brings us to now. The update's been out a while, and thankfully my worries were unfounded. Not only are the nerfs only for a few narrow circumstances that I personally have little to no interest in, but the game now is so much more playable for a two-person fire team. As of recording this, I've managed to break 310 light level with all 3 of my characters, and this is something I'm ecstatic about. The enemy AI also seems to have gotten a lot smarter. I've noted them actually dodge out of the way of grenade fire now, or plot for where I'm going so they can target me better. As a melee player, this makes up-close combat much more engaging and exciting, and long-range combat more viable, but also exciting because the enemy does accommodate for that. The new Prison of Elders modes have helped us progress, and strike reward drop rates and all the little tweaks have made everything so much more worth it. Oh, and that new sword, oh. As an old Halo player, some of the little mechanics with it make me so very happy, but that's for another time. I started this off by saying Destiny has been the most frustrating and fun gaming experience I've had in a long time. And it's still true. Progression's slowed down a little bit, and sometimes the challenge of the Elders can seem insurmountable. But Bungie has made it so that, with some perseverance, the game is very much doable in its current form. Even if I am too scared right now to do Nightfalls because oh god they were tricky before Jesus Christ we're returning to the old mechanics with a raised light level. Sure thing, Bungie, that's a good idea for me, I'm not doing that. But you might be wondering, why did I detail all of this out? This is after all a very personal and short overlook of my experience, which doesn't go quite in depth enough to detail everything. And I haven't even touched on how this game has got me writing again, or how it's pushing me to improve my art again, or that somehow it's making my brain feel active and alive again. I suppose the simple answer is I made this because I wanted to try and show a small part of the journey of following a game that you love, despite the issues and flaws they've had. That even though the game isn't perfect, it's still been a joy to revisit, and that despite the frustration, it's been a genuine challenge, unlike the kinds most games present these days. And if you just keep at it, most of the time you will make progress. I'm excited to see what comes next, I guess, and when that happens, I want people to have some context for why and how I'm excited. Now, I looked for a dramatic quote from the game to end this off with, something from a weapon or from an armor piece, but to be honest, I think Cade 6 sums it up best here.
Just between you and me, this is why you're my favorite.